Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wealth Within Us. Today I have with me Veronica Drake, and she is a psychic medium and a metaphysical educator. So Veronica, I'm so glad to have you on because I love the things that you do. They're things that I want to get more involved with. So first, I want you to introduce yourself and tell us kind of how you got started on this path.
Awesome. Thank you. I am so excited to be here. By the way, my friends call me V. So whatever you're comfortable with, Veronica or V, I answer to a lot of names, all good ones. So how did I get started on this path? And let me just tell you, the first thing I had to work through was the word psychic. I had an aversion to it. I didn't like the connotation of psychic. But what I realized was I just didn't really feel comfortable with myself because words reflect the meaning that we give them. And so I am proud to call myself a psychic medium.
Yeah, and I am proud to introduce you as such.
Thank you. So I guess I would say I go back to the beginning of my psychic medium awareness was when I was 25 years old. My grandfather passed, was very close to him, and it was rather sudden, even though we knew he had a heart condition. It was rather sudden. And in hindsight, I could see about 2 weeks before he went home, I call it, to the other side, he started preparing me that he was going, although at the time I didn't know that. So the evening of his passing, I was beyond consolable. I just was hysterical. I was pregnant with my second son, 6 months pregnant. And my grandfather appeared to me. He was literally at the foot of my couch, and I saw him in a fashion that I had never seen him in my physical reality. He had his army uniform on. He served in World War II, and he had his army hat on and his army uniform. And he just said, "I'm okay. You need to take care of that little boy inside of you." And I didn't know at the time I was having a boy, but yes, I was. And so that opened up the door. And you would think it was a significant opening, but as a young mother with 2 kids, little kids, I just didn't have a lot of time or energy to put into it. Yeah. I just was looking for my own comfort. And so that's what that provided me. But that was my first experience.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, and I think what you just kind of tapped into is that, like, a lot of us don't have time for what are, I think, sometimes the most important things in our life, or at least these signs of the markers of our path that maybe we should be on rather than the paths that we are on.
You know what? Very true. And I have a whole like soapbox I could get up on with that, because the reality is we're conditioned, right? Yeah. Like, go to school, become this, make this amount of money. That's foolish. Yeah. Don't do that, right?
Like, do all the things, and this is what you'll get in reward. And it's like, even on my website, if anybody has been to my website, like, that's actually how I start out. I'm like, they told me all these things, go to school and do good and la, and, work your tail off. And, and you're going to get all these rewards in the end. And it's like, well, where's that? This is crap. Like, this isn't true. Like, you lied to me. So I'm glad that you're saying that, because I do actually really believe that.
Yeah. Well, and I came from a family, a lot of dysfunction, mental illness, alcoholism. So I was about survival. And God bless him. My dad, he was a functioning alcoholic. We learned that term as time went on. He held down 2 or 3 jobs. He worked at the paper mill, very blue collar, and life was hard for him. Like, right? My mom was mentally ill. She left when I was 9, blah, blah, blah. My dad held down 2 kids until he remarried, and there were 5 kids. But money did not come easy to him, and it did not grow on the proverbial tree. And so he only passed on what he knew how to pass on. But he also passed on, women don't go to college. They marry men that go to college. And so there was a very, I call it the Fred Flintstone mentality. So I did what any 20-year-old would do, or 19-year-old would do. I found a man, I got with him, I married him, I had kids, I didn't go to college. But then I went, Yeah, like you said, this is bullshit. Like,
Yeah. It's almost like it's this big lie that they tell you to trap you into that system of like do, and don't buck that system, because that system's for like for you. And only the real system of like awakening and seeing what's possible and manifesting and actually creating the life that we're supposed to live, finding our purpose and all this stuff, like that's only meant for the few. So we're just gonna, propagate mainstream education and media with all this garbage of what I know I'm on my soapbox
get it though.
of what like you should do according to their terms. So it's not listen to your intuition or follow your heart or any of these things. Even sometimes I think to do what you love and the money will come. I have to say that didn't really happen. I loved what I was doing, and I don't, and I know words matter, and it's like my pile is not large. I
Don't you also feel that, over time, not money's not important, because I don't want to
No.
say, because it is. I mean, and another soapbox I get up on is when people say, how can you charge for what you do? You have a gift. And then to that, I say, try going and taking your bags of groceries out of the store without you. I have a lot of education behind me in terms of spiritual development, personal development, learning my skill, crafting my techniques. So I've worked hard for this. But we also come from a time where, and I think this is changing, we come from a time when we look outside of us for solutions. Everybody else has our solution, right? Mm-hmm. Then it comes from, our family of origin starting out, giving us their conditioning, telling us what they believe will keep us safe. And we're wired, our natural wiring is to be self-sufficient. Back up. Our natural wiring is to remember to check in at home. And when I say home, I mean the divine, the source, the spirit, right? Instead, we become reliant, dependent on our tribe, our human tribe, to keep us alive.
Or even more dangerously, our governments and our education systems and people that don't have our best interests at heart. And I personally believe that that is intentional, not for our benefit, but for others' benefits, a very small select other benefit.
Well, and that's where we have to empower ourselves with our education in terms of knowing our own bodies, knowing our own reaction. I mean, intuition, psychic intuition, there is a difference in the terms, by the way.
Okay.
Intuition is the personal feeling I have, the hair on the back of my neck, my gut feeling. Psychic is I look at a person's energy field and I read into it. I can pull from who they are psychically. So I do that. Intuition, you meet somebody, you get a gut feeling. I don't, the energy's not good. So
vibe, it's like, oh, I get a bad vibe from that person.
Absolutely.
That situation, that place.
But we don't listen to that. And I have a theory on that. I have a theory.
I would love to hear that theory, because I believe the same thing. I believe we're disconnected with our intuition to a very high degree.
And we don't listen because we fear change. And if we listen, we know we may have to change something. Because let's say you're out and you meet somebody, everybody's always asking, where's my soulmate? Where's the love of my life? Whatever, right? You're out, you meet somebody, you have a drink with them, and your little spidey senses are kicking in a little bit. You're getting, a little. And I speak this because it's happened with more than several clients of mine.
Okay.
Get it going. There's not something there, but guess what? The conditioning. Geez, I'm still single and I'm 38, or geez, I should be married, or here's the big one. I'm going to ignore this because I can change him. I'll work with that, and so we don't listen to our intuition, because if we listen to that and we say, oh, thank you for the drink, bye-bye, that means, well, there we go. I'm not going to have it again. I've got to go back and I've got to face it. It's
and almost like we've been conditioned to settle.
Yeah.
Settle for less than.
Absolutely. To what end is to meet the conditioning that was imposed upon us. So in our minds, we think there's a legit reason, right? But it doesn't hold any water. So if your body is in tune and you meet this guy at the bar and you have to make a decision, you know, geez, he just doesn't feel right. Something's not, but I know if I walk away, I'm still going to be single and I'm still going to have to talk to my mother at the family reunion and whatever your conditioning is, you know. Can I tell you a quick story about intuition? So I had to fly to Florida a few years back by myself. It was a late night flight. And I got on the plane and I got a row seat, an aisle seat. And this guy was coming on the plane. And I just, for some reason, I'm drawn to people's shoes. And I looked down and thought, oh, he's got nice shoes. They're nice Italian leather, loving the shoes. Now I'm married, right? Been married for 20 years, love my husband. Not looking at a flirty way. And I'm thinking I'm intuiting him. I'm psychically and intuiting him. I'm reading him psychically and I'm bringing it into my body. And I'm going, all right, he's this, he's that. I can read it. And I said, I hope he sits next to me across the aisle. Sure enough, he sat next to me. And he's talking to me and we're talking about businesses. He's built 3 businesses. I'm a business owner and I'm really into this conversation. So the flight attendant comes in, she says, drinks, you know, and he says, can I buy you a drink? I said, no. Because in my mind, I'm not giving you permission to buy me a drink because blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I don't want a drink. He would not take no for an answer. And then my spidey senses started kicking in and I started psychically picking up other things with him that I like. And he wouldn't stop. And he was nice enough about it. And I looked at him and I said, just out of nowhere, how many times have you been in jail? And, right? You wouldn't think that's going to come out.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere.
And he said to me, 3. And he turned his head forward, never said another word to me until we were getting off the plane. He turned around and he looked at me and he said, how did you know? And I just said, I just know things. And that was it. So I trusted my intuition. And who knows what that saved me from, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to learn to become verbal with what it is you're picking up on psychically from other people. So moral of the story.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the things that a lot of people, including myself, sometimes struggle is what is intuition and what is like maybe fear or my own control or my own like will being pushed onto something else, I say.
Great question. So when I do psychic work, again, reading the energy, and when I do mediumship work, which is talking to the dead, and that can be your spirit guides, your angels, your deceased loved ones. Okay. I have a benchmark, very clear. Spirit and your intuition or your psychicness will never scare you. You will never get negative. It'll only expand you and make you feel empowered and positive. If it's ego, if it's self-talk, if it's conditioning, it's going to contract you, make you feel small, and it's going to make you feel like you need to tell a story to support it.
Okay. Yeah. Like, oh, well, this is why this is, and like all these reasons.
Justifying it. You know, there's a big hot conversation about in the industry I'm in about evil spirits and devils. And I don't subscribe to that. I mean, do I believe it's out there? Of course, I think there's something that's converse to light and love and all of that. There has to be duality. I don't focus on it. I've never had an evil entity attached to me or any one of my clients. I mean, I just don't do it.
Yeah, that's it's almost like I'm not going to bring that into my reality from a sort of manifestation, because if the outer world is really a reflection of our inner world, then that's not the stuff that I want to bring out there. And I think that that's the trap that people get caught into, right? Is that
absolutely
I'm going to get caught into and trapped into somebody else's outer world, not my own.
And the reality is, you know, when you have a heavy negative thought, it's because of your own fears taking over. You know, the boogeyman under the bed, you know, kind of like, ooh, you know, I can't find a legit reason for this. So I'm just going to put it on the boogeyman or the dark energy or, you know, but really the dark energy is your shadow side making your life visible for you. You know, we all have a shadow side that I believe in.
I do too.
Yeah.
So it's like, who's running my life? You almost like, I always picture the little,
wow,
like the angel and the devil, sitting on your
totally,
shoulder, like, well, who's controlling this ship right now?
totally, totally, absolutely. And I never wanted or consciously started out to do this work professionally because honestly, like I didn't have any experience with this. I didn't come from a religious background. Christmas was Santa Claus, Easter was Easter Bunny. I had no religious context to anything, right? Which is kind of good because ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah.
So when I started doing this work, originally I started with oracle cards. I love
Okay.
oracle cards,
Mhm.
tarot
Yeah,
cards,
I have a bunch of those too. I do love those. Yeah.
and I just did it for me. Like, and then I started to see, oh my God, this is very prolific. This is,
Mhm.
there's a lot to learn here. And then it was profound, and oh my God, I can see this. And then I came across, somebody introduced me in the early 90s to the concept of a life coach.
Okay.
Just as it was getting started, it wasn't
Yeah.
ingrained in society. And so I went to school to be a life coach. And that was my initial entry into this. Intuition and psychic ability were just a tool that I used.
Yeah. And with life coaching, you're really reading other people by their tone, the words that they're saying, like their mannerisms. So it's totally about reading people.
Absolutely. And then I just engaged in that. And, again, here's the pitfall for me. The whole hook, line, and sinker. Oh, become a life coach. You can charge $150 a client. Now, this is back in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
I paid $5,000 back in the 90s. That was a lot of dough. I mean, it's a lot of dough now, right? But I made the commitment. I got up. The calls were held from Australia on a bridge line, they called it then, no Zoom. And I got up every morning at 5 a.m. my time. Then I did my class, went to work. Like, I was committed to it. But here's the thing about me, Michelle. I went all the way through it, did my 120 hours of coaching clients. I never sat for the final exam. And so you cannot call me a certified coach.
Oh, how come? Like, why do you think?
Um, I don't test well in my mind. I'm going, I don't test well. And I look back now in hindsight, I'm a rebel. And part of me was like, that I don't need that piece of paper.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, speaking of which, what do you think of that? Because there's certain things that, like, moving forward with my own careers or ambitions or things that I want to do, that's one of the things I look. Well, do I take these certification courses? One of the things I've been really looking into is emotion code and body code, which is really just energy work. But I love the way that it's explained and all that stuff. But bottom line is, it's really just energy intuitive work, like you were saying. So it's like, do I get this certification? Do I spend this time that truthfully I really don't want to spend? Like, it's
and the
not even the
dollars.
money, but it's the time. And it's like, am I now not like qualified? Do people, so like, what are your views around that? Because I have to say, I struggle with that because I feel that sometimes people want that piece of paper that you've paid for, regardless of experience.
Absolutely. And I can tell you this, it was it was $900, drop in the bucket, basically, to get
Yeah.
certified in the emotion code. I did it.
Okay. Yeah.
Several years, few years ago. Would I do it again? No.
No.
Only because it is such an intuitive, natural process that you're walking you through.
Mhm.
And that's my spiel there. But the other thing is, the reason I believe, for me, it was a confidence thing. I didn't believe in myself. So I thought if XYZ, ABC, Joe Blow, Susie, Sally all signed a piece of paper and had their name on it, who the hell were they?
Yeah.
That I hung it in front of me every day, it would qualify me. But here's the thing, 20 years in business, okay? I promise you, not one single time has anyone ever asked to see my certifications, ever.
I agree. I mean, I'm a graphic website designer as well, but like, no one's ever asked if I had a degree. Like, I always look at it like my work speaks for itself. Now, I will say, when I was working corporate years and years ago, it was a big deal. I really held me back. Even though I had a bachelor's in marketing, I didn't have a graphic design degree, which I did end up going back for. but it, like, at that time, it kind of held me back. So it's like, maybe I'm still back in that mentality, which isn't even truthful. Like, people wouldn't hire me on my merit. I could do the work.
Mhm.
But they wanted that specific degree. It's like, what am I spending all my time and money on? And at the time I really wanted it. I was a lot younger too. Um, but yeah, but now I look at it totally different, that if I want to sort of hang up my shingle that, Michelle Blaze, energy, intuitive healer, whatever it is, like,
Yeah.
why do I need all these credentials if people are getting results?
See, that's the thing. If you show up and your energy is in alignment and your intention is in alignment with helping people,
Mhm.
and you're getting the proven results, there's nobody's signature on a piece of paper that's going to make that possible, right? You kind of
Yeah.
do.
And a signature on a piece of paper isn't even necessarily going to make you good at your profession. I
There
mean,
you go.
like, you go to people that all the time and they have degrees and they're doing all this stuff, and you're like, "Ugh, like, where did you, it's like that proverbial, where'd you get that degree? A Cracker Jack box? Because it's like, you stink at what you do for whatever reason. Maybe it isn't your calling or whatever. And I mean, obviously, I think there's certain things, like, I certainly wouldn't go around, cutting someone open and performing surgery.
I
But
want my surgeon to have gone to
yeah,
school.
like, there's certain things that, and even then, ooh, look at all right, maybe that's a little better. I was feeling very green, but anyway, but yeah, I agree. Like, there's certain people, and even then, it's like, sometimes I wonder, because you figure there weren't always universities and stuff, and people have been doing that since the dawn of time, right? So is it really the certification and the piece of paper, or is it the training and the
Training.
practice,
It's
the
the
10,000 hours, the whole thing with that? Like, I'm sure I could, if I had the will to become a surgeon and I just was taught and I didn't pay for an education, I could be quite adept at that, given the proper training. So I'm not saying I'm going to hang a shingle out without being like, hey, I think I'm going to do this and I've never done it before. Like, not that.
I teach mediumship development, and I call it mediumship 101. It's the basics. But here's the thing: whenever you get stuck
Mm-hmm.
in life or intuitive work or psychic work or any kind of work, go back to the basics. Go back to what you learned, recalibrate, reset, go back to the manufacturer setting. In mediumship, when I teach it, the underlying principle is awareness and confidence. Because if you don't have confidence and you're not aware of who you are and your surroundings, how are you going to know when you're being contacted? How are you going to know, discern the difference between a spirit contact and your own stuff? That's
Yeah.
what it is. And everybody says to me, when are you going to get a certification program? If you don't need my name, you don't need my name. You can take my class. You don't need my name on a piece of paper. That's not going to give you
Yeah.
it.
No, I really do love that perspective, because I totally agree. And it's like, kind of like you said earlier, it's somebody else's programming that we need those
Yes.
things.
Yep. Well, if my name on a piece of paper is going to give you the confidence, I need you to step back, and I need you to, and thank you for that, but I need you to step back and I need you to look at yourself. Now, if my training is going to help you and you want to get in on that, I'm going to
Yeah.
do everything I have.
Yeah.
Here's
Let me understand the things that I don't quite understand. Give me the tools or the strategies to do the thing that you're supposed to be doing. Because sometimes
Yes,
even those things, there's a lot that you can't learn in a book
that's absolutely true.
or
And
on a Zoom. It's like, by doing, you learn the most by doing. Yes, you need all those basic, and even by doing, like, I actually went to a tarot class. It was a little chaotic. Like, the lady was really good that do it. This was just like on Sunday, 2 days ago. And there was, like, it was like in this place with all this background noise. It was a little bit chaotic, but me being a little bit new, I've done the oracle cards for a long time, but me being new to tarot, she was really good at what she did, but I didn't feel like I needed some kind of certification from her. And I learned these things after kind of doing tarot a little bit with other people, doing it on them and practicing it. it helped clarify some things for me that maybe I was unsure of. But
Oh,
did I feel like I needed a certificate from her?
no.
No, but it certainly was helpful.
And there's a lot of women out there that think they have to acquire more and more modalities, right? Because the
Or
more they,
letters behind their name, right?
yeah, but here's the thing with that will always hold you back because you'll never jump off. I was the kind of person that I literally quit my job, cashed in my insurance policies, cashed in my retirement. I jumped full throttle off the cliff and went, oh shit, now what? Now, don't necessarily recommend that because it was hard. My journey to being a successful entrepreneur certainly didn't go like this. It is that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that begs the question, what is a successful entrepreneur? What do we base that on? What's the criteria? Is it a six-figure business? Yes, I'm there. Is it being able to teach something that you've learned succinctly? Yes, I'm there. Is it being a caring individual who gives back to the people who work? Yes, I'm there. Is it a forward-thinking, creative acting, constantly grow? Yes, an entrepreneur is all a successful entrepreneur is all of those things. So I want to clarify what successful entrepreneur looks like. So,
well, and I say this often enough too, is like the title of my podcast is called The Wealth Within Us. And I very strategically or thoughtfully, I should say, chose the word wealth because what wealth is to me may not be to you and what or anybody else. Like my definition of wealth is very different from other people. It might be similar, but it's still my definition of wealth. It's all personal to each of us. And that's why I love that word, because there's no sort of like, there's no standard definition. Like you just said, it doesn't mean I have to have credentials. It doesn't mean I need to be a billionaire. You know what I mean? It just,
yeah, I love that.
what I say it is in my own, how do I feel? These are the things that I want to achieve and experience. And for me, it's more about it. A lot of it is about experience, because even during the achieving part, we're still experiencing the path to achievement and the achievement of itself. So to me, that's kind of like why I love that word so much.
And to me, wealth, I've achieved, quote unquote, the external expected benchmarks of being a successful entrepreneur, and being wealthy. And I don't mean to sound arrogant with that, but because I'm not wealthy, but wealth to me is having free time to spend with my family.
Yes.
That's my wealth. Like right there, that fills me up. I feel if I have that, and that's really why I do what I do.
And owning my time as an entrepreneur, doing what I do, which is much more remote. That was the way I designed it, because wealth to me was being able to go do something during the day with when my kids were younger, or with my girlfriends, or go to the beach, or whatever I want to do. And then conversely, I want to do something at night. So I need to make sure I do these things, but having this ability to almost do things on my own schedule rather than be tied down to someone else's.
Absolutely. And I could never go back to the proverbial 9 to 5. And I'm not that person. So
I agree. I'm not either.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for all of this. And, to call myself a psychic medium, we were talking, I had a little bit of a problem with that word. My husband was the head of a Christian organization and he's very Catholic and, what am I going to do? But I realized that, the meaning I was given to the word psychic was clouding my energy of using it, right? Like it was dirtying the water. Because when we think psychic, I mean, I don't know about everyone else. When I think psychic, I think carnival, sideshow, gypsy. She's got the turban and the crystal ball. But that's not true. It's not true.
Yeah.
It's an image that we have. But I had to break that. And I think I'm breaking the mold. I'm pretty average, ordinary, I think.
I think so too. And I think that in general, the term psychic is changing, at least to people that are more familiar into that world of things. That's not how they look at psychics. But again, it's like we're not seeking the approval of our peers.
Exactly.
We're seeking the approval of those that honestly sometimes really aren't our ideal clients anyway, which is kind of bizarre when you put it that way.
Well, isn't it like, you know, we're taught somewhere, or we pick up somewhere, like me, like me, like me, right? And oh,
Yes.
if you don't like me, you know, who the hell are you? If you like me, that's cool, but like if you don't, that's cool too. You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
I
which
think
is so pervasive, like on social media. That's what it's all about. It's like not only just like me, but it's look at me, look at what I'm doing, whether or not this is just the facade of the crap going on in the background. It's all about the projection and what you're projecting out to people, whether it's true or false, or there's parts of it that are true, but like maybe you are doing all those things, but yet you're like miserable all the other times with whatever.
that is so true. You know, and I have to tell you, I have to really be honest with you. My social media built my business, okay? Because I have never and will never be something on social media that isn't real. If I'm having a pissed off day, or or shit's hitting the fan, I'm right out there with it.
Yeah.
This morning, I got stung by a yellow jacket this on Sunday. I'm running around my house. I couldn't find an ice pack. Yesterday, I had a bag of raviolis on my sting. Today, I had a bag of French fries on my sting. Like, this is real life for me,
Yeah,
right? And so
exactly.
I've used my platforms in a very positive, affirming way, and
And
not
authentic.
an authentic way. Absolutely. Yep. And it can, when it's used the right way, it can be something. But, you know, I can see the downfall of social media is comparison, you know, where
Oh yeah.
in other people's lives. And I'm the first person to say, I do not wake up with the birds singing on the windowsill. I'm cleaning the bird doo-doo off half the time.
True. I
Oh,
mean, you figure even you and I grew up in a time where there was no internet and everything. I just remember
right.
being like hell in junior high school, being like, oh my God, and this is like real people and just the people that you have to see. I can't imagine it being plastered all over the place. Oh my God.
You know what's funny though? You know, I look back and I've reunited with some people from earlier in my life, like high school and under, you know, middle school. And the people that I thought were like, oh, they're just, and it's so like interesting to me how we're all on a level playing field,
Mm.
but we always were.
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how you don't,
Yeah.
when you're in junior high school and the girl that's beautiful and has all the newest clothes and, you know, and you don't see it there. But I guess there are women my age, 60, who are still stuck in that. So I guess, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that hurts my heart.
It
Yeah.
does. It does. It's kind of like the kids that so-called peaked in high school. You know what I mean? Where they're just that's that reality that they want to stay in, so to say.
Hey, that brings up like first thing that comes to my mind is Al Bundy. Remember the Bundy? He sold shoes. He
Yeah.
had was his high school football glory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but it is. It's like you kind of going back to what you said earlier, because to look at those things always requires change on your part, and change is scary. So to look at where I'm at, if I want to get somewhere else, it's going to require change on my part. Because, like you said, no one else is going to change around us. Like you're the one that has to make it's your change that sends out the ripple.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are the decider of what changes. But here's the thing. I believe that we are all a piece of what we've come from. And I believe that is, call it source, call it energy, call it universe, call it God, call it creator, whatever you want,
Yeah.
right? Is basically for me, it's energy, right?
Yes, I agree.
Energy. And so I think we are all an extension of that. And I think there's that invisible tether that we are constantly, but I envision it like this. We got the mothership, the ship is on the water, right? And we're all doing our thing. And then we jump off and we all have our own little ships. And sometimes we get too far away from the mama ship and we lose connection, right? You know how
Yeah.
it reminds me of this, like we don't have a
Yeah.
signal. I don't have a signal. I can't hear. So that to me is what is like dark night of the soul, spiritual madness, even maybe some type of depression. when we become disconnected, unplugged, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. Either willingly or sometimes like unwillingly. Or it's like with the whole energy work, like you said, it's like the unprocessing of those emotions sometimes that keep us stuck, and that stuff that's trapped within us, like we're all energy and we're all flowing. So if our energy isn't flowing, then we're stuck. Or if there's pieces of us that aren't flowing, then it's stuck, causing dis-ease in the body, whether it be mentally, physically, or both.
Well, and with the emotion code, it's trapped energy, right?
Trapped emotions and energy.
Yeah, and I just think there's validity to that,
There
the,
is.
the
And it's the
chakra.
same. Yeah. Like with chakras, and even I got Reiki Master certified like way back in 2008. And that's really what was the foundation of it, is it's trapped energy that needs to be freed.
Yep, and just moving the energy and just kind of knowing yourself, right? And knowing,
Oh.
I teach like with the chakras, like we're taught, okay, this is our crown, this is our third eye. But and one of the pieces for me that was always missing was, okay, so I have a root chakra that's kind of blocked and it's sluggish. And by the way, I can look at the chakras and I can see they look muddled, or so when I see a client with a root chakra that's just like a hot mess, I'll go in and I'll say, well, this is what I detect. And the prescription I give them is, you need to sit down in here and let your root chakra have a conversation with your heart chakra. What would the heart say to the root? What would the solar plexus say to the root? Interact, let the chakras interact together.
I haven't heard it quite put that way. Yeah.
Never taught like that, because, you want to clear your root chakra, you go do this, this, and this. And I'm not saying they don't work.
Yeah.
But if we believe that we have the answers contained within us, and you can, in your mind's eye, have your heart speak to this damaged root chakra, couldn't that just be what you need?
Yeah. And it makes sense, because if everything's interconnected, then why would we look at that as anything that's just as connected as everything else?
Yep. And that's your intuition. So when I take a client on a journey and I say, let's unite your heart, because I believe the disconnect between the heart and the root chakra is what's causing the dis-ease. There's blocked energy. These two need to talk. They'll get the energy moving and flowing, along with maybe other modalities and maybe the emotion code. But when I lead you on a journey and I say, we're going to go deep into your heart chakra and we're going to invite the root in.
Mm.
Is family of origin stuff, it's tribal stuff, it's survival stuff.
Yeah. So your root chakra is your right to be here on earth. Your grounding chakra. If you're not grounded, then you don't feel like you have a right to be here.
Mm-hmm. And so what words of wisdom or empowerment can your heart, because the heart, is pure, it's the essence, is the seat of the soul, what would the heart say to the root? And explore that, follow that, because there's great wisdom in that.
Wow, I love the way that you just put that. I'd never quite thought of it that way. And I would totally admit too that I haven't dived real deep into the chakra system other than like basic stuff.
Oh no, and here's the thing for me. I was just talking to someone about this. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. That's how I'm wired. I'll learn the layer, right, that I need to put into place. I know just enough to get in there and do the work. And then I trust the intuition and the psychicness to like take it further. Because if I sat around and got schooled thoroughly in every single one of these modalities, like I'd never have time to serve clients.
Yeah. And when are you learning how to apply all that knowledge either? If you just keep learning and learning and learning, when do you start applying it?
Absolutely.
And it's in the applying that like you said, the aha moments come that, oh, now I see this connection and that connection. It's that critical thinking part. And like you said, the allowing that psychicness to come through and say, oh, well, this is this, or did you look at this? And then trusting that piece of information.
I spent a good portion of my life off and on in therapy, and I do believe in psychotherapy. I think there's a benefit to it, but I'm going to tell you, and listen, I am not saying don't get psychotherapy, because I'm an advocate, right? Do what you do, you do. And my tagline is don't drink my Kool-Aid. Okay. Because if you drink my Kool-Aid, you're dumb. Just do what feels right to you. But I believe the work I do in getting right in there and excavating, because I can see your stuff. And you might not even see it, or 9 times out of 10, people see it. They know why they're coming to me.
Yeah, they're just suppressing it.
Yep, I can see it. I can excavate it. And a lot of times, once the lid is blown off and it's opened, people go like this, and they're like, I just spent 30 years in therapy and I didn't even get this far. Now, don't replace your therapist with me, but that's what has been happening in the readings that I'm doing for people.
And I've talked to a lot of other people, even guests on this show, that were traditional psychotherapists, and they're like, this is not working.
No,
it's the energy piece that's missing. And that's how a lot of them came into more energy type of work and healing in that way.
Well, I will tell you, without disclosing information, I have a pretty significant client load that are therapists. So I do.
I believe it, because I mean, if I had spent all this time and then getting a degree and then practicing, and like this didn't work, and I honestly can say, like my mother, she did over 40 years of therapy, and you know what? She's no different than she was 40 years ago. In fact, actually, at this point in her life, she's almost 80. Like, she's not only no better, she's probably worse off for having done it.
Yeah, it's kind of
like having come to me and asking me what should I do, and I sent her the energy route path, and she's just, but I think her soul just is too comfortable being a victim.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times therapy, again, I'm not saying don't go get it, but you chase your tail. I can remember sitting in session after session after session, the same old stuff. And even I would walk into the session and I would be like, I got nothing new.
And especially if you're seeing a psychotherapist that really is just that's just prescribing.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of in her case, it was just prescription after prescription. That it's like, I mean, who are you anymore? And speaking of which, like, here's a question that kind of popped into my head. What do you feel, or what are your thoughts around people today, in the sense that I think that a lot of people are really out of touch, not just with their intuition and their gut, but from their humanness.
Oh.
Yeah, I opened up that can of worms.
Oh, yeah, we could go there. Well, because, I have a theory.
Well, it kind of went along the lines, because that's what I think a lot of people that continue to go, it's like, they're not even, like, there's just something that's gone.
And it's we've become robots, like we've become,
or the transhuman, or whatever they're calling it now.
Jump through the hoop, do the conditioning. But here's the thing, and the F word will sum it up: fear. Back in the day, we were terrified of saber-toothed tigers. We're going to get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, and we went into fight or flight, or the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, and brain did all it did, right? What is our biggest fear now? Oh my God, I didn't get back to that text message. I left it hanging. Oh my God, emails are unsent, and I've got too much piling up.
Mm-hmm.
We're confused about what's real and what's not. What matters.
Yeah, what's important
really doesn't.
And what's vital to life, almost. Like, what is vital to life? Is answering this email vital to my life? And I guess you could respond that by saying, well, if I don't answer that, then I don't get paid. And then if I don't get paid, I don't get to eat my mortgage, blah, blah, blah.
But it's the ripple effect. It's the one more thing. There's always going to be one more thing. And so here, this goes back to the very simple equation that Spirit downloaded to me many years ago. If it expands you, go for it. If it contracts you, put it down. And maybe you'll put it down for a minute. Maybe this text message doesn't need an immediate answer, but you have an impulse to look at that text message. What's that about?
Is it an impulse or a conditioning?
It's a conditioning.
Yeah.
Is there such thing as a conditioned impulse? I don't know. You know.
I don't know. Yeah. Like you're conditioned that the minute you hear that ding, it's almost like that
Yes.
Pavlov's dog kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, like we're the dogs, people.
Yes, we are.
Like, wake up.
Really, I'm teaching women how to unlearn.
Yes, that's what this is. And I think that I think with everything that's gone on in our world, I personally believe that we're in a state, in a time of great awakening more than anything else. And and part of the great awakening is the great unlearning.
Absolutely.
And it's like you realize all these things that weren't true. And one of the things that I think you had maybe sort of mentioned it was like, once you see it, you can't unsee.
Right.
But you know the truth. You don't not now know the truth. So it's like, once the truth is revealed, don't tell me to believe the lie anymore, because now the truth is uncovered.
Mm-hmm. But, truth opens up a whole nother paradigm for me, because truth is subjective. Like what I believe is true is different than what you believe is true. But if we anchor ourselves, and here I get really passionate about this, if we anchor ourselves to the universal truth, which is energy.
I like that.
Which is energy.
Mm-hmm.
Energy doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And universal truth is the sun comes up, the sun goes down, the tide rolls in, the tide rolls out. Like those are universal truths. Personal truths are, you have to be careful, because are they conditioning? Is there resentment? Is there what kind of other energy?
What emotions are attached to it?
Absolutely. So that's a whole dialogue there.
Yeah. And I always say too, it's like, I personally feel like the truth will set you free. Universal truths or factual truths, whatever, like those truths are the truths that set you free from
truth, I have
the programming.
This quote is, truth is simple. That's the quote. I wrote the quote, truth is simple, because truth doesn't need a lot of
it just is.
It doesn't need a lot of extra stuff. It doesn't need to be fancied up. It doesn't need, that's why, I love no is a complete sentence. That's my truth. You want to go? No. I don't have to white lie it to you. I don't have to give, because I don't have to give you a reason. No.
Yeah. We feel we have to justify when we don't want to do something. And not because of, well, da 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 da, and this and that, and just no.
Well, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want, I don't want to step on toes. I don't want to burn, and if my intention to tell you no is coming from a place of love and a protected, boundary-ridden heart of no, it's not going to serve either of us if I show up angry, hot, pissed off, and resentful. Like, why would I do that?
Yeah, and who's that serving?
But we do that, right? And historically, we do, But I can remember my grandfather, the one that I was talking about in the beginning. He always had this thing like, smile on. And I'm like, I don't want to smile. I don't feel like smiling in this moment. Like it was like forced,
Well, and it's almost like telling you how to feel. Like so often we've been, and it's like, I almost feel as if we've gone from this place of hide your feelings, or I'm going to show you how to feel, don't cry, don't do this, don't do that, to now where it's like almost they're telling you to feel, but in an authentic way. It's so strange and convoluted. I think I'm like 51, so you've kind of seen this whole shift in thing where it was like, don't cry, don't do these things, like hide your emotions, and I grew up literally stuffing every emotion down because I didn't want to show any part of that side of me. And now it's like, we'll show all these things, even if they're not true, just express them. And it's just so strange to me. Like, oh my gosh, we've gone from one extreme to, how about just be you? And if you have an emotion, just express it authentically, that real, true emotion.
It's such
mind-boggling.
There's such a freedom at 60 that I find in my life. I never gave thought to getting older. Like I just said to my husband the other day, I remember when I was always the youngest person in the room. And now, inevitably, I'm always the oldest or one of the oldest people in the room. But you know what? I freaking love that, because there's power and empowerment in that.
And
You know,
knowledge and experience.
yeah, the crone, the mother, you know, there's so much wisdom to be gotten. And to your point that we're churning the corner, we're going into a new era, a new phase, we're coming into a heart-centered, feminine-led, divine
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And that doesn't mean that we perch all women up and they lead. I mean, it can mean that, but it means the male counterpart also will be meeting their feminine inners, you know, and
Well,
coming.
and I think people take it as extremes too. Like, people may like this or not, but I have a big problem with the whole feminist movement from like the 50s, 60s, 70s, because it was like, you're not really teaching, you're not promoting women embodying the feminism that is inherently in them. It's like, I felt it was more like, go put on pants, go show your boobs. Like, how the hell is that making me a feminist? You're teaching me to be a man. And it like, it was like just so the missing piece in it for me. Like, to me, feminism is like, I'm going to embrace being a woman and the pieces that bring in that are essentially feminine in me, and not be ashamed of them or hide them, and not think that I deserve less because of them either. So I think there's something to caution, I would say, if this, which needs to come in, the feminine needs to come in, but I think the feminine needs to come into balance. And
Absolutely.
I think that's where we haven't been. It's been so patriarchal dominated. I mean, for as long as I've even read history, you know what I mean? For as long as we have recorded history. And it is so crazy. It's funny. You'll like this. We saw the Barbie movie last night at the drive-in. And I have to say, I was like a total child during that movie, because the whole beginning of it, I literally lost my shit laughing. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. This is insane. This is so ridiculous. And then you like start to see the metaphors and the symbolism, and you're like, oh, this is totally a movie on our society right now and how stupid it is. And I just like, I had to give the movie kudos, whether they were portraying or not. That's what I got out of it. Like, because they went from this like, oh, it's feminine Barbie world, and then Barbie gets in the real world, and it's like, oh, the real world's run by men, and Ken's like, woohoo, like, you know, and it's just
Oh my God, I need to go. I need to
dying.
go.
Yeah, I mean, it just was like, it's a very big mirror in your face. That's just, if you can actually get to to below the surface of like the idioticness of this movie, like if you can get below the surface, there's actually kind of a lesson in there too. And what I would reiterate again is, in this time that we are coming, where we really need to balance, I would say we need to balance out this patriarchal system, because we are in such a masculine dominated world right now, and look where it's gotten us.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we need to flip to a whole feminist space. What we need is, we need the balance.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
that's what's been lacking for as long as the history that we are aware of.
Well, and I think if you think about feminine, think about love, compassion, kindness,
Yeah.
married with all of the masculine, look at Mama Moon. The moon has so much beautiful feminine energy, and Papa Sun,
Yeah.
look at what we have access to, that duality, and bringing it more into getting rid of the machismo, the machoism, machizo, however you say that, right? The macho man. And the other thing is, I have to tell you, chivalry, like, open the door for me.
Yeah, I'll take that. Hello. I'll take that stuff. It is not at all an insult to my feminism.
But on the other side, if I'm a woman and I see you need the door, I'm going to open the door for you too.
Exactly. It's the balance.
Equality. That is equality. Now, we could go down this whole road of, women and the glass ceiling, and women get paid less, and all right, whatever. That's a thing. I guess it's a thing. I've never experienced it personally, so I
I've
don't.
experienced it in corporate, unfortunately. Like if you were a woman in corporate back in the 90s, it was hard. And God forbid you had a child because you weren't going anywhere. And let me tell you, the days that your kid was sick, the people at the top, and unfortunately, I was near some of them, and it was like, yeah, you were like shit talked, and at least that was my experience. I'm not
Is it
sure if it's
better?
okay now.
Do you think it's better?
I've been out of corporate for over 22 years for good reason, because that environment was it was very, at least where I worked at that time, very masculine dominated. And look what came out of it. It was like a lot of women not having kids or feeling like they had to do it was what came out of it was women emasculating themselves. Like, I have to be a man, I have to act like a man, I have to put on this tough exterior to fit in with the good old boys club or whatever. And I'm sure it's not like that in every industry, but it was definitely my experience in corporate.
Yeah. See, I never worked in corporate per se, but I also think that when we have we come up against these difficulties or these differences, a lot of it is how we react to it and how we show up to it. Now, obviously, we're not going to go into work in a corporate environment and say, give me this, but the energy
without earning it.
Yep. The energy that you put forward, I'm going to have a positive mindset. I'm going to, so I really think it comes back to energy. Everything we do
an
comes
equal
back.
exchange of energy. It's like, I want this equal exchange of energy for what we're calling our currency of the moment for my time, effort, and talent. And I think that is what a lot of times is really off balance, especially when you get into those types of situations, and vice versa. If you're just sitting around, like, I am definitely for a more merit-based society. Like, why should I just pay you because you exist? If you're not doing anything and you're not contributing, or you don't have the knowledge and you can't help, and like for whatever can of worms that is, like, I really don't believe in universal basic income. Should people be helped when they're down? Absolutely. But should people just be rewarded for no exchange of energy? Like, what does that even do from a spiritual sense? What does that do to you spiritually when there is such an off balance in either direction of a complete misalignment of an exchange of energy, where I'm giving so much for so little, or I'm doing nothing for so much?
It's not healthy, is what it's not.
Yeah.
It's not
Wicked
healthy.
off balance.
Yeah. Yeah. This is awesome. I mean, I could kind of do this dance all day with you.
I know. I do. I like go from topic to topic, and I have to say, and some of those topics, like, I get more passionate about, because I do believe in equality, but I believe in an equal exchange of energy on top of it, and like time and talent in exchange for that energy, whatever it is. I'm not just about the handouts, and they're necessary. I do believe that. And I'm not saying leave people to the side. Like, no, because, we've all been in those situations, or maybe not all of it, but like, definitely there's some of those of us who've been in those situations where those have propelled us into these great places that we can go.
Absolutely. There's a quote that says, you'll stay where you are until, how does it go? Until it's more to the uncomfortableness of where you are is more uncomfortable than the uncomfortableness of change.
Yeah. And again, back to change.
Yeah, you live in that world of I'm staying here because it's comfortable, but is it really? Because it's really uncomfortable. And then it gets to that place where you just can't find any comfort in it, but yet change is uncomfortable. But I'd rather go into new uncomfortable than keep drowning in the same. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot more people living in that severe uncomfortableness, which makes a cranky,
because the threshold that we're being programmed keeps getting, like, this tolerance for uncomfortable keeps increasing. It's like, well, no, you should be able to tolerate. And it's like, when are people going to be like, no, like, there is no level of uncomfortable that should be tolerated. And it's all part of our own spiritual path, like you just said. And it's change. Change is the catalyst, but that threshold to me keeps getting well, you can, and if you can endure this, then you can endure this, then you can endure this. And it's like, how far is it going to push before we're all living in the dirt and like whatever?
You know, I get imagery in my head. That's how spirit speaks to me. And what I saw was an image of a heel spur. You know, in a heel spur, you get a bone grows out of alignment, and it when you walk it hits tendons and nerves, and it's very
Okay.
painful. But after a while of living with a heel spur, it wears itself in so that that uncomfortableness, it never becomes completely comfortable, but it's found a place where it doesn't hurt so much. And you begin to just say, oh, I'll live with the heel spur.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're doing. We're getting into a place where we're finding a comfort within the discomfort, and it's not really comfort. It's an illusion of comfort. And
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
the settling that we had
yeah.
almost talked about a little bit earlier. It's like, well, where's your settle point? And like I said, that threshold just seems to keep getting higher and higher. And there are those of us that are like, well, no, that's not where I'm not going to settle. I'm not going to settle for some shitty guy or some crappy job
Yep.
or like whatever it is, or I'm not going to settle for doing the same thing that I'm doing and still making the same money, wealth, whatever in the end.
Well, and I think intuition, using your body as a guide, you know, when you get an intuitive hunch or you get a tingle or you get something, put a plan of action behind it. So if
Yeah.
you have a dream and you feel stuck and you want to dream something, just say, what if I, you know, and then
Mm.
feel how your body, does it expand you? Does it contract you? And, you know, the thing I've taught my clients is don't ask the question, how. Always start your question with what, because the universe will provide the how.
Yeah. So the
Once
what if, yeah.
the law of attraction, once you put the what out there, what is it that I need to be focusing on? How you know, the how will come. I want to build a business. What is it that I need to know to build a business? And the how will be revealed to you. I believe that. That's how I live my life. Like
I I I
can't.
do believe that as well, because I am definitely trying not to be a past self-saboteur of, well, I need to know the how. Well, I need to know the how. Well, I can't see it. I can't see it. And it's like, and I see it in my daughter too, because she says all these things that she wants to do, and then she's like, but I don't see how. And I'm like, Abby, don't worry about the how, not practicing always what I preach, but
Oh,
I guess that's
but
part
that's
of
a
being
great.
a parent. But yeah, but it's like, you don't worry about the how. And I have to remind myself of that other time. Like, okay, Michelle, see these things that you want to achieve in your life or want to experience in your life, and stop worrying about the how. But I get so caught up in the how. It's like, but it doesn't make sense, and I'm like, well, how am I gonna, you know what I mean? And then I'm like, oh my God, stop. So I
Well,
try
what does
to
that do
catch
to you?
myself.
When you get in that loop of how, it makes your world smaller.
Oh, it makes so much sense.
You contract. But when you say what you want and you don't put any parameters around it, you have the whole universe at your fingertips.
Yeah. And that's
And
what
there's
people
signs
forget.
everywhere. Yeah. So
Yeah. And it's like the magic happens, I guess.
absolutely.
Whatever you want to call it, the magic, the experience,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, my dear,
Oh
this
my
was so
gosh.
much fun.
Yeah. So how can people work with you? I know we had this amazing conversation, but like, what does working with you look like, and how can people work with you?
So my website is veronicadrake.com. I have a membership called Going Within, where I actually do that. I help women go within. I have different modalities. Each month I bring a different speaker in. Plus, actually tonight we meet the second class of the month, and I'm teaching tarot. So basic
Oh, good.
101 tarot, learning the cards and how they relate to you and what you can
Okay.
for. So Going Within is a program, and I also do personalized psychic readings where I read your psychic energy, mediumship. I connect to your deceased loved ones. So it's all on my website, veronicadrake.com.
So that is the place to go to work with you. Well, I would love to have you back. I'm sure that there are probably a million other topics that we could talk about.
I'm certain of that.
Yes. So I'm so glad. I appreciate all the time that you took to talk with me today. So please get in touch with V, and she will help you sort out your own intuition, help guide you and put you on the path to where you want to be and are destined to be in this life experience. So
Thank you
until
so much.
you are welcome. So until next time, thank you for watching this episode of The Wealth Within Us.